Hello, humanity. Welcome back to the end of the world. Okay, so back in 2022, I did a project on the end of the world, on basically what we call pralaya, right? I had been pursuing my Jyotish, which is Vedic astrology, course for the past 4 years at that point. In between, COVID happened, right? And we'll get to COVID as well. That's part of my research. So what happened was I was studying my Jyotish course, and towards the end of it, I got interested in dating the apocalypse, basically. And what I found out was that there was this very rare planetary event that was happening sometime soon, right? Specifically, so my analysis showed that there was a specific planetary position that could happen once in 60 years, and it was going to happen again in 2030. It was going to begin on the 18th of March 2030, and it would end on 6th of July 2030. So it is a position that involves the effects of the transits of Jupiter and Saturn. Okay? There's this verse from the Brihat Samhita that says, Yada Vishakheshu Mahendra Mantri Sutascha Bhanur Dahanar Kshayataha Tada Praja Nama Nayoti Dhoraha Puraprabhedo Gatayor Bamekam. My Sanskrit is a little rusty. You're gonna have to forgive me. In English, the translation is basically, when Saturn is in Krittika and Jupiter is in Vishakha at the same time, there would be widespread destruction around the world and mankind would become extremely wicked. This is essentially a precursor to widespread problems across the world. So this happens once every 60 years. Specifically, there's a possibility for this conjunction to happen every 60 years. This combination happens when Saturn is in Krittika and Jupiter is in Vishakha. Now, the reason that this is significant is because one, and in this position, Saturn is debilitated. Shani is Neecha, and he's extremely malefic at this point in time. And two, Jupiter is going towards the area of debilitation. He's becoming extremely weak. So I've mentioned why this is really important in the book, and I'm going to read out why it's good, right? So Jupiter is one of the most benefic planets, and his grace can save the person from death itself. A lot of positions that or yogas that cause death and suffering are nullified just by Guru's drishti, by his grace. And even from an astronomical perspective, this is kind of true, because Jupiter's gravity has caused the creation of an asteroid field that prevents the entry of rogue asteroids that might collide with Earth and destroy life there. So that's kind of like the reasoning, right? And according to interpretational principles, the planets becoming debilitated make them unable to give the results that they promise. Certain situations, the benefic planet turns malefic and becomes unable to prevent malefic events. Instead, it becomes the catalyst for such malefic events to occur. In a case of Saturn, who is widely regarded as the most malefic planet, his debilitation causes a strange phenomenon. He becomes even more malefic at that time. The reason that I chose Jupiter and Saturn for this particular study is because they represent the ultimate of both sides. So studying them in their weakest position would be quite enlightening. That's what my idea, my reason for picking up this particular project, based on this one particular verse that I have mentioned before, right? To specify, Saturn is in Krittika and Jupiter is in Vishakha at the same time. These are two nakshatras. We'll get into that. There are 27, some say 28 nakshatras. One of them is only used for muhurta. Okay, so specifically for Jupiter, I analyzed 20 plus charts over nearly 200 plus years. And in Saturn's case, I studied over 100 years of charts basically. And because of the time scale and the lack of conclusive data as we went into the past, there was a gap in the knowledge, right? I couldn't go beyond 100 plus years because records were not clearly kept. But the 100 years, this pattern has been established. So, of course, there may be mistakes in what I've said. There may be mistakes for sure. But what I said about what's going to happen in the future is this, essentially. I said there would be a major war involving multiple world powers. The seeds of this war will be planted between 2028 and 2030, with the likelihood of increasing global tensions during the same time. The severity of the conflict will rise in 2031, and at this point of time, the Indians will get involved in the conflict as well. And this war is likely to be a world war event that will change the dynamics of the entire world and maybe even bring about a new world order. There will be widespread destruction and loss of life. But this is not the only thing that happens. During Shani's Nijaton, we can also expect multiple natural disasters to happen. But because of climate change, the disasters are going to be even worse. So it's going to be a Pralaya level event. And I said that the savior of humanity, which according to the Hindus is Kalki, according to the Christians is Yeshua, according to Muslims also Yeshua, the Jews believe that their Messiah will come, but the truth is that they are actually worshipping the synagogue. They are the synagogue of Satan. Not all Jews, but there's going to be a group that pretend to be Jews but are not. And this is mentioned in the book of Revelation. It's mentioned 2 times. Alright? So, when I read all of this, the first thing that came to mind was Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhaga bhavet. I prayed that everyone is happy. I prayed, Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, may everyone be happy. So that's what's going to happen. Now, what I did was, during my studies, I did like this analysis of I did an analysis of all the charts. Every time that Jupiter falls into Nichatra, that means he becomes weak. If I had to summarize what I was talking about Jupiter, so the debilitation of Jupiter almost is always connected to some sort of worldwide financial crisis. In certain occasions, they would usually be followed by a war. The First World War occurred during Jupiter's debilitation. At that time, Saturn was debilitated as well. So this is the pattern I want you to notice. Whenever these 2 planets get into the position of debilitation, bad things happen, right? Interesting thing to note is, over a period of nearly 300 years, covering over 20 plus charts where Jupiter was debilitated, there was only one time that there was no financial crisis of any sort, either preceding, during, or immediately after Jupiter's debilitation. So the timing is not always on the mark. There's a certain knack to timing it, but basically, whenever we take this particular debilitation, either the recession will be beginning, we'll be going through a recession, or it will be ending. The recession will be ending, right? And there's only one time that there was no financial crisis of any sort. 20 plus charts, right? Okay. Now, Saturn, on the other hand, the transit of Saturn is linked to suffering. The Brihat Jataka is very clear about this. It's very pessimistic. Every nakshatra he enters causes suffering to someone. Like, you could say in a way that Shani's presence in a chart is linked to suffering. It's not always the case, but there is a growth. Suffering happens. And because of that suffering, the person changes, they become philosophical, they start pursuing God. And that's when the magic happens. Grace. Some people don't get it. Some people maybe in their next lives, you know. But yeah, this is the scene, man. I had a theory that Shani's Nichatam status would cause issues like war, famine, or other man-made disasters that affect more people. I mean to say is that significant events have always happened whenever Jupiter is debilitated, Saturn is debilitated. For example, on May 11th, 1998, this is when Saturn is extremely debilitated, India became a nuclear nation. It did so on its own terms. It also forced Pakistan to conduct nuclear tests, and Sonia Gandhi's government severely criticized the Vajpayee government for performing the tests. The international community were not pleased because India became a nuclear nation. At the same time, every country imposed sanctions, economic sanctions. They froze loans, aid, only humanitarian grounds were allowed. And at that time, India had about 44 billion in loans from the IMF and the World Bank. The US also criticized India and they also imposed sanctions. They tried to hold talks and make India sign the nuclear ban treaty. India refused. Right? At this time, Vajpayee was the Prime Minister. Another time, Saturn was debilitated and was aspecting Venus and Mars. At that time, the Second Congo War happened. It was one of the deadliest. It's also called the African World War. More than 9 African countries and 25 armed groups were involved in the war. The death toll was 5.4 million through disease and starvation. Despite the war ending in 2003, 1,000 people died daily in 2004 from cases of malnutrition and disease. That's insane, man. So, then the curious case of Saturn in Jupiter. But before that, I did both, okay. In the beginning, I mentioned that the inspiration behind choosing the particular topic was because of a verse from Brihat Samhita. And like I've mentioned, like I showed, like there was a clear pattern. And whenever Jupiter fell, there was always some sort of financial crisis, specifically a recession. And this was observed in about almost 19 of 21 charts. And over 200 plus years. The only reason I didn't go any further was because there was a lack of concrete economic data past the 1800s. That was when the great wealth transfer was happening for India, by the way. When we look at the transits of Shani, on the other hand, it's clear that during the Nichatvam, it's more likely that war and natural disasters occurred. So the data pool is rather small, and of course, I agree. But considering the current data we have, it kind of overwhelmingly points to something. The most recent time there was a recession was in 2020. Everyone knows what happened. And you want to know the interesting part? Just a year before, on sometime in November, there was an eclipse where majority of the planets were stuck in the eclipse. They were all affected. And a few months later, the world had to shut down. March 2020, right? So, 2020 and 2021, there were huge stock prices crash. International pandemic was going on. Majority of humanity was basically cutting down on everything non-essential. The tourism industry came for a complete grinding halt. Nobody traveled anywhere. Only world leaders. Airplane industry, motor vehicles, everything stopped working. This time period was rather drastic. There was a huge shift in the consciousness of regular people, and because of the horror of death that was everywhere, people underwent a sort of a spiritual awakening, right? And it's interesting to note that 9 and 12, the 9th and 12th house in Jyotish is actually long journeys. Jupiter controls these two houses in the natural zodiac. And Jupiter also controls wealth. He's the natural ruler of the 9th house and the Karaka for the 2nd house. So 2nd and 9th are connected to wealth. It's interesting to note that whenever Jupiter was weak, there was a recession. Sometimes he's also conjunct Saturn, right? So this was the timing of events that I had, and what's going to happen is 2028, Jupiter goes Nicha. Shani's debilitation is in 2028. He goes Nicha on 25th of February 2028. So as the events go closer to 2028, more and more countries will start participating in war. America is going to be caught in a world war. They started it. The beginning of World War III is here. And I have a book, a physical copy, and I printed this in 2022. This was my project for my Jyotish. And I just want to say it's incredibly interesting how we're heading towards 2028. Shani's Nicha is going to happen. The conjunction of the planets is going to happen in 2030. And as we go closer to 2035, we head closer and closer to war. So this is what is happening, right? That's what I've been thinking about for the past 20 plus years. I have been focused on the apocalypse for the past 20 plus years. I've been doing research on this particular topic. I've seen what is coming, and it's not good. So I'm just doing my part in letting people know that times are going to get worse before they get better. This always happens. This is the phase. The end of an empire is nigh, and that the Roman Empire basically became the US, right? Propped up by the Vatican, all the gold it has. The West versus the East, Gog versus Magog, and the 12-minute war will happen. And then at the end, demons will burst out of hell, the dead will rise, and humanity will fight to survive in the present. That's the situation. So, the interesting thing is, after I did all this research, I stopped using Jyotish for a very long time. It's only recently that I got back into it. For the longest time, I was actually not studying Jyotish at all. It's only recently that I got back into it. Recently meaning like literally yesterday. Right? I would look at charts every once in a while. I would see certain things, I would see certain patterns, and I didn't always make predictions. That was something I didn't do that often. But yeah, I've been talking about the end of the world, specifically like the events happening today. I've been talking about since 2014. That was when I was back in Christ University. I was doing my BCom. I've completed my MBA. I'm considering further education, take the big step. And yeah, that's what's happening, man. That's the situation so far, right? And I just want to say that this is an incredible time to be alive. This is one of the best times to be alive, particularly from a spiritual perspective, because I don't know if you've realized this, right? God is coming. The presence of demons is very clear. The presence of demons is extremely clear, right? I've had quite the interesting life. I've pursued my interests. I have lived well. I'm an introvert at heart. I always live at home. I do my own thing all the time. That's how I live. Right now, I'm focusing on writing. Before this, I have been doing art. For that, I've also been doing martial arts at the same time, and I'm getting back into martial arts coaching actually. So the first client is obviously myself. Once I'm done, I'll move on to the rest. But yeah, so this is the end of the world, man. I just thought I'd let you know. This is short and sweet. Right? And so the things that are coming. One of them is the Pax Judaica project, the war on Iran, Silicon Valley in AI. They want an AI surveillance state, they want digital ID, they want digital currency. There's going to be mass immigration to the West. And for Pax Judaica to happen, the world must end. There will also be an increase in anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. The Zionist state of Israel will sacrifice a red heifer and rebuild the Temple of Solomon. They will destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque and unify the Muslims against them. After that, Europe will get involved, Russia will get involved, there will be a civil war in Europe, there will be a civil war in America, India and China and Japan will be fighting each other. There will be an American embargo against China, maybe against India as well. Depends on which side India stands on during the entire event. There will be a battle and war against Iran, and a lot of other people have said this, so this part is not original. America will lose this war, they'll lose a lot of money, and they will also share all their weapons with Israel. All the weapons they leave in Iran will be for Israel to take over, and this transfer of wealth will create Pax Judaica. This is where all the data centers will go. I mean, this is where the headquarters of all of the tech industries go. They control the army of Satan. That's not a lie, that's actual fact. Tech industries are building the army of Satan. AI will be taken over by demons, and they will inhabit and start a war against humanity on another front. The angels, fallen angels, will come back. We will also consider them like aliens, some of us, right? There will be different kinds of aliens that come back. Some of them have a tendency to eat human flesh. Yeah, this is the situation our world is in. Now you understand why divine intervention is necessary for this to be set back in place, right? Now you will see the idea. So, World War III has begun. The final war, Gog versus Magog, is coming. Most of the tech companies and banks are going to move to Pax Judaica. The Antichrist is going to rise. You don't understand what's going to happen if God doesn't come, right? We're all going to be caught in a capitalistic dystopian hellhole where even our dreams will be forced to work even in our dreams, and they'll harvest data while doing that. This is the future that's coming for humanity if they choose to accept the mark of the beast. Just thought I'd let you know. That's about it. We'll end with that particular topic right there. Thank you for listening, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.